This is a press conference being addressed by the Igbo Conscience on the agitations of for Biafra by the Igbos. Now, the title of this press conference is Ndi Igbo are better off in a united Nigeria. Ndi Igbos are better off in a united Nigeria. Gentlemen of the press, our silence as a group on the renewed agitation for the sovereign state of Biafra, majorly by Igbo traders and youths, particularly in Igbo land, was very deliberate. We decided not to be hasty so that our pronouncement as a group will be backed with facts and figures that will be difficult for anyone to dispute. Historical facts. The late Chief Odumegwu Ojukwu Ikemba Nnewi once described the Biafran struggle as no longer a physical thing, but a struggle of the mind, a mind thing. You will also recall that while Ojukwu was alive, one Ralph Wazirike started agitating for a sovereign state of Biafra with his group known as MASOP. The Kemba never paid any attention to them, but admonished that it was no longer by physical combat, but with a mindset that yearns for justice and equity. Government's response to MASOP's agitation was oftentimes severe, and a case in point was the massive killing of some of the agitators who were later dumped in a river in Anambra State some times ago. This took place under the last dispensation, and up to today, the date and how they occurred remains a mystery. During the build-up to the election of 2015, MASOP, that was clamoring for a sovereign state of Biafra, became interested in Nigerian politics and even issued threats that unless Professor Atahiru Jega, the then INEC chairman, is removed, they will burn down Nigeria. That was an unpardonable blunder, as they portrayed themselves as an unserious group of men and women who were approbating and reprobating at the same time. What has INEC and the election of a former president, Goodluck Jonathan, got to do with a group that desired a state of Biafra? The former president, Goodluck Jonathan, and INEC represented a personality and an institution that belonged to the Nigerian state that they wanted to be free from. Designing minds got the message clearly that this fight by these men and women was not about the Igbo cause, but about selfish and personal interest. In short, it is about bread and butter. The election of 2015 has been won and lost. The losers and winners are history. What is now unfolding is the resurgence and renewed agitation by a new group known as the indigenous people of Biafra, led by a young man living in faraway London. His name is Nnamdi Kanu. His modus operandi is through a radio medium known as Radio Biafra, where it is alleged that he spews out hate speeches and engages in name-calling and abuses of all personalities, including Nigerian state. He uses social media a lot to propagate his agenda. And to be sincere, he seems to have mobilized a large followership who consist of the youths, traders, and even some educated elites. What is peculiar about this audience is that majority of them neither saw nor experienced the 1967 to 70 war in Nigeria. At best, they read the story as history or social studies. The intrigues, the mistakes, the avoidance, the connivance, the betrayals, the wisdom, the foolishness of that war cannot be as real to them as to those who were witnesses to it. So what we are seeing presently is a group of young men and women who are trained to sing "Let My People Go" song all over the southeast region, demanding that Igbo should pull out of the Nigerian state as their economic survival, safety, equity, justice cannot be guaranteed under the present arrangement in the Nigerian state. This is as hollow as it is defeatist, and is born out of the most blood-curdling political scam ever visited on Ndi Igbo. We have taken time to engage in this lengthy historical voyage to lay a solid foundation for our comments and solutions below, which we believe will nip this brewing crisis in the bud once and for all. Let it be noted, the Nigerian state as it is today has the imprint of the Igbos, be it in the foundational struggle for independence and nationalism. No one can deny the individual contributions of the great Zik of Africa and a rich swath of Igbos. While there are good grounds to dismiss the demonstrations as part of the legendary propensity of the Nigerian people for drama, it has become important to make a clear statement on this development because of the obvious implications for Ndi Igbo. The reluctance of respected Igbo men and women across the nation and beyond to speak on the agitation because they consider it infradig to spend precious time on it has enabled a handful of charlatans and politicians working in cahoots with the demonstrators to seek to create the impression that a majority of Igbo people are in solidarity with the agitators. Let us state the obvious. Neither Nnamdi Kanu nor his followers have the mandate of the Igbo people. They were never elected. To the best of our knowledge, they did not consult Ndi Igbo on the agitation for Biafra, which led to Mr. Kanu's arrest and detention on suspicion of threat of terrorism, kidnapping, ethnic and religious incitement, and waging of war against the people and government of Nigeria. If anything, the youngsters calling for Biafra appear to be tools in the hands of failed politicians. One of the most prominent of the politicians did tell journalists on January 15, 2015, that Nigeria would break up if Dr. Goodluck Jonathan was not re-elected as Nigerian's president in the last March 29 general elections, adding for effect that the legal instrument which brought the country into existence had expired. It is not sheer coincidence that none of the prominent supporters of the indigenous people of Biafra was in Biafra during the 30-month civil war, whose consequences are still there for everyone to see. They have no first-hand experience of what it means to go through war. Therefore, it is understandable that they have developed a penchant for beating the war drum at the drop of a hat, which they erroneously assume will get the new federal administration to make concessions to them. While gleefully beating the war drum, they have carefully ensured that none of their relatives or family members participate in the demonstrations. The demonstrations have so far been largely peaceful, but no one can guarantee how long they could remain so, because youngsters do not always act peacefully when they're in large groups, as evident when university students go on protests. We deplore the spirited attempt by some people to distort Nigerians' history as it affects eminent Igbo elements. We deplore in particular the attempt to cast Chief Emeka Ojukwu in the image of a poster child of Nigerians' disunity. True, Chief Ojukwu did lead the Biafran war, but he was never a pathological rebel. In fact, Ojukwu was a pan-Nigerian, true, and did state many times that the Biafran rebellion was forced upon him by historical circumstances. Most history books consider him a reluctant rebel. Ojukwu was a public servant in eastern Nigeria in the late 1950s. But as Nigeria's independence began to approach, he was worried about the increasing regionalization of the nation's affairs. Consequently, he joined the Nigerian army, which he considered the most national of all existing institutions then. With the Civil War over, Ojukwu returned to his pan-Nigerian activities. When he decided to participate in party politics for the first time in 1982, shortly after returning from a 13-year exile in Cote d'Ivoire. He deliberately chose the ruling National Party of Nigeria, NPN, which he believed was the most national of all political parties in the Second Republic. He even sought to serve his people at the national level through membership of the Nigerian Senate. He made it crystal clear that his sole motivation was to complete the process of reintegrating the Igbo into the mainstream of Nigerian politics. After supporting such Nigerians as Dr. Lushola Saraki and Alhaji Bashir Tofa, as well as Chief Olufalaye, to become Nigeria's president at different times, Chief Ojukwu presented himself for election as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2003 on the platform of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. Meanwhile, Chief Ojukwu spent years campaigning for what he called a handshake across the Niger. By this expression, he meant that all ethnic groups, beginning with his Igbo people, must find ways to live together in greater peace and harmony as one people, so that the black people could take pride of place in global affairs. Against this background, it is tragic for people like Nnamdi Kanu and his followers to describe Ojukwu as their inspirational figure, as their sponsors have brainwashed them to believe. The situations in South Sudan and Pakistan came to mind here. While it is possible for any Yoruba man or woman from any state in the Southwest to serve in any capacity in Lagos, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, for an Igbo from Igbo state to work in another Igbo state. A case in point is what happened in Abia State when former Governor T.A. Orji sacked all civil servants from Imo, Anambra, Enugu, and Ebonyi. The same happened in Enugu State when a former governor sacked all the civil servants from Anambra State when Enugu was carved out of the old Anambra State. 2. That we reject the effort by these people to stereotype Ndi Igbo as perpetual victims of the Nigerian state and chronic campaigners who can never be satisfied. We don't understand why some Igbo should feel comfortable anchoring their just demands from the Nigerian system on self-pity through relentless cries of marginalization and neglect. Igbo are known for enterprise and industry and not for any syndicated appeal to self-pity, as the proponents of the present Biafra resurgence are making. As recent as 6 months ago, Igbo occupied and boasted of occupying prime position in the country during the 6 years regime of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Why is it that immediately after the defeat of the past regime in March, the cries of Igbo marginalization rose to high heavens, with slanderous allegations made against a president that was yet to be sworn in? Pray, what are the merits of Ndi Igbo? What merits did Ndi Igbo derive from this much vaunted strategic placing in critical position for 6 years? Should Igbo be crying of marginalization just few months after sitting on top echelon of the country's political and economic spheres, if these political positions benefited Ndi Igbo? Should roads and other facilities in the southeastern region be dilapidated so badly and so suddenly as they are today, if we benefited from these former office holders, some of whom are sponsoring the present agitations? Should our teeming youth be jobless today if our former office holders use their position to benefit Ndi Igbo as a people? When and where did marginalization of Ndi Igbo start? And if I may ask, when do we think it will end? 3. That we are yet to reconcile the present embarrassing pedestrian argument surrounding this new craze for Biafra with the well-acknowledged depth and staying power of Ndi Igbo on national issues. While Ndi Igbo are noted for deep introspection and reticence on issues, we dare say that the present agitations or agitators, perhaps in a haste to achieve their deadly political ends, are building on shifty hollow reasonings that repels rather than attract support. We see the results to slander, lies, abuse, blackmail, use of indecorous language, effusive use of inciting hate language to spark reactions and violence from other sections of Nigeria, and nothing more. Igbo are not noted for this. We state that Igbo are hardworking and friendly people, and not people ruled by extreme hate and negative passion, as the progenitors and sponsors of the present needless Biafran agitation present us to be. 4. It is beyond doubt that a bulk of Igbo investment are domiciled outside the so-called Biafra. It is certain that more Igbo live outside the so-called Biafra, and it is beyond doubt that these senseless agitations and their sponsors are exposing both the massive Igbo properties, wealth, and majority of Igbo people to danger by the present politically induced needless agitation. The Igbo Conscience believes that Nigeria provides a big space for Igbos to thrive. When you have an Atlantic Ocean to swim in, you do not need a pond in Okigwe to do the same. 5. TIC notes with dismay that the present ruthless and uncoordinated agitation has renewed anti-Igbo sentiment among our brothers and sisters in the South and promises to rekindle an early rivalry that will negatively affect Igbo interests in the days to come. We note the angry rebuff and exhumation of already buried animosities against Ndi Igbo in the just effort of our brothers and neighbors to disown this charlatanism of Biafra. We state that this is unfortunate and dangerous to Ndi Igbo and their interests, as we reassure our neighbors and brothers that Ndi Igbo have no interest in acquiring their land or space. We want to assure our neighbors and friends that Ndi Igbo have no plan to forcefully conscript them into a fancy utopia, as the present agitators seek to do. We appeal that their acts should be discountenanced, as they do not represent the entire Igbo interest. 6. We note that some economic refugees who are staying in Europe and America, as ways of mitigating the harsh economic realities in Nigeria, are fueling these agitations. Most of them with no known means of livelihood and drawing from the social benefit of their host countries, are in the lone business of fanning the embers of hatred, persecution, and destruction in the name of supporting Biafra. They continue to leverage on the stable political, economic, and social spheres of their host countries to keep their children from harmways, while they instigate jobless youths who are here, hoodlums, Okada riders, traders, and victims of the system in Nigeria to suicide via the use of social media. We challenge all these economic refugees that are fanning this deadly fire to relocate to Biafra with their children and become agitators instead of prodding other unfortunate youths to destruction. Conclusions and way forward. The country is now under a leader who is a social crusader with integrity. It is believed that Ndi Igbo should be given their recognition and place in the distribution of infrastructural blessings, as the old eastern region suffers so much deficit in that regard. 2. Employment of the jobless youth should be intensified by the government that is in power presently. Industrialization and diversification of the economy by the input of government at all levels, including that of the private sector, should be pursued vigorously by this present regime. 3. All the tribes should be carried along by this administration to foster unity and maintain harmony in the polity. 4. Igbos must learn to work, live, and enthrone peace, harmony, and respect to one another in wherever they find themselves all over Nigeria. And I want to say this, that Igbo land should be open to all tribes, has always been open to all tribes in Nigeria. Igbos are known to be very friendly and accommodating. 5. Every person that is under arrest or detention in respect of this misplaced struggle should either be charged to court or released unconditionally to avoid making heroism out of any person that does not deserve such. 6. Merit should be enthroned in the policy before other considerations. What we mean is that merit should be assigned a percentage in our national life before quota and other considerations, which also should be given a percentage that is less than merit. And then I think finally, we are also saying that Nigeria should be restructured so that the federating unit must be given autonomy. And when Nigeria is properly restructured, where the federating units are properly autonomous, I tell you, all these agitations from either Biafra or from the Yorubas or from the Hausa Fulanis, we cease. That restructuring is very key. And we are saying that when we do this, we think that Igbos and other tribes are better off in a united, prosperous Nigeria. Any other route, any other way is a very longer route for us as a nation. Thank you, gentlemen of the press.